Hey, how's it going? I'm just going to show you how to recreate the Slack bot that will basically go and watch for the event, the post, pass it into a spreadsheet, and then it will decide whether it's a new post or not, and then send that out to Slack. So super quick, I'll just show you what happens. So it's going to go out, it's going to look for the post. It's now pulling in the data from the post, and this will take a second or so. So I'll just pause. And what it's done is it's filled in the spreadsheet. So if you create a sheet like this, you'll see post URL, text, the date of the post, and the unique identifier of the post. And then it goes into this filter and basically says, is this a new post or not? And if it is, Slack will then go and pull it from the Google Sheet. And with a custom bot, it will then make a post in here. So in this test channel, you see new LinkedIn post alert here. And then you can obviously add in all sorts of parameters too. And so just super quick, how this is done is basically this first bit is you could ignore for now. So this is basically the schema that you want to create. And so in make.com, what you want is this HTTP action. And we're going to be using this Rapid API. And this is the name of the one to search for. And it's actually free to use for 100 credits a month, which basically means you can do 150 searches across a month, which is pretty decent. And they have all sorts of scrapes in here as well. So there's this one here for the personal data, and this one for the company, and then you can do other ones in here as well. So let's say in this scenario, we're doing the company posts. So it just shows you the HTTP kind of code that you're going to need. And so these are basically the keys that you're going to implement into make.com. So when you're in here, you have this URL. So this is the URL of this particular Rapid API. You're then doing this get method here. And now these are the headers, and it tells you in here which headers to use. This is still a header. So this is the name of the header that you're going to need. And so you just add that in here, the host. But then your unique key is the other header, and it doesn't show that in here because it's unique to you, but it will be here, X Rapid API key. So then just make that another header. So those are the two headers that you'll need. And then query string, this is basically what you're asking it to do. And so the name is obviously the LinkedIn URL, because this is what we're trying to get. We're trying to get a URL. And so then you put in the name of the company that you want to search for. This is the example that I have here, but it can obviously be whatever. I think in here they have an example. If you test the endpoint, they'll have an example in here. Usually it's like Amazon or Microsoft. Yeah, so I think this is an Amazon one. Yeah, so Amazon. It basically just shows you what the example of the data that you get back is. Then in here, we're just limiting it to one at a time. So every time this runs, it's basically going to go and get one, and then passing the response automatically. You want to check this because then it means that it's going to basically separate those things out as text. And then connect that to a Google Sheet. So really easy. You just choose your spreadsheet from your drive. Basically connect this to your Google Drive. Create a new sheet where you want one. Then what it's going to do is then it enters this router. And what this router does is basically checks. So when this goes and reads what our post is, one of the bits of data that it's going to return here is going to be this ID. So I'll just show you. Here's like all of the things that it's pulling out. Let's have a look. So this is the post, and in there it has this URN, which is basically the unique post ID. And so it's going to put that into this post ID column here. Then what this module does, and you don't necessarily need this if you're kind of trying to do this at scale, but if you're trying to do this kind of sequentially, what this router is going to do is then go and check if when this runs. So if you have this automatically running every 30 minutes, every hour, whatever, it will sometimes collect the same post twice. So because it will run, it will see there's only one post on the page, and it will keep collecting that. The ID filter then basically says, is this ID, yes, no, unique? And if it's not unique, it will go ahead and put it into the sheet. And if it already finds this in here, it's not going to duplicate that. And then so when this doesn't duplicate it, when it finds a unique post, it will enter it in. And then what this Slack bot does is basically goes and aggregates all of this information and then goes and sends the message to the Slack. And basically how you set this up is basically just connect this to your Slack. So you want to go onto api.slack.com/apps. And so if you don't have if you haven't got one of these before, you're basically just going to go create new. And it's really quite easy. You do this from scratch. Obviously connect with the workspace that you want to put it in, give it the name, and then it's kind of really quite straightforward from there. The things that you're going to need about this app is basically this client ID and this secret ID. And then you have to come in, you give it the names, and then also make sure you go to permissions and give it the permissions that you want. So basically, can it write messages? Can it read channels? Can it write chats? Can it send things publicly? And then you need to add in this redirect URL. So this is like make.com's unique URL. It's basically the URL that you go to say, yes, I want to add this to my workspace. So that when someone, obviously it's already installed, but if it wasn't installed, someone would click on this and they come to the page that basically says like, do you want to install this? This is like the permissions. So set that all up. And basically what you're going to do in here is then create this unique message. So obviously this is currently just a loudspeaker emoji with this post thing. And then what we're doing is then this is what the message is in the channel. We're having post content, and then we're getting this data from here. So how this works is if it's the name of data, it's basically pulling in the data from this post. And so you're basically mapping it. So if you've not used Make before, it's quite easy. So if you were going to come in and create a new one, maybe you'd want to share the post ID, but you'd basically write post ID, and then you would come in and select basically from that HTTP one, you'd come and select the ID. And so then what that's doing is then it will send that in. And so then when I go back to this window, you'll see that that's how this is all formatted. So post content is there bold. It's got the link in there with the link and then the date that's posted. You can add in as much information here you want, or you can make this totally custom and it will basically send that out into that channel. You can obviously edit this over time. So yeah, and basically the reason and why I have these ones in as well is basically to stop this running all the time. So if this was running all the time, it would basically be going out and getting the posts, say, every hour. And because you only get a certain amount of those posts for free in a month, I have this basically blocker in here that acts, which is, through make.com, using their watching the posts. And then I go and check whether that post is unique or not. I do the same unique check again on the ID. Now, the reason I do this is because this one costs, whereas make.com included in your subscription, you'll get a bunch. The reason why this module here isn't good enough to work with the Slack bot is that it doesn't give you the post URL. So when you return this, it's connected to the UGC account. So you have to in order to use Watch Your Organization posts, you have to be a part of that organization. And so if you're not part of that organization, let's say you're watching a competitor's feed or something like that, you would need to, you can't basically do this first step. And so you'd just be starting from this HTTP request, which means you can only go and get 100 gets a month. And maybe that's fine. Maybe you just want it to go and get, so you'd come in here, maybe you just want it to get all of the posts, once a day or once a week or something like that, just so you're not missing it. But if you want to kind of do it automated as a webhook, you would need it to be running a lot more frequently, which might mean that you go over your requests. Now, what you can do in here is you could schedule a setting and be like, you can really specify this and basically just between the hours of 9 and 5 run every 15 minutes. And that way you could condense it down, or, don't have it run on weekends, don't have it run during the night, that sort of thing. And so there are ways like around that, or alternatively, I guess you just pay for the API access. So yeah, hope this is helpful. If you have any more questions about it, just let me know and I can try and record this, or I could show it from scratch. It might be more helpful because this has probably been a bit rambly.